Welcome everybody, Logan Chops Reviews preview of Innsmouth 32 by GameWick Games. It's coming to Kickstarter on July 16th. Innsmouth 32 is the third game in the shuffling horror board game line from GameWick Games, the first being Pittsburgh 68 and the second one being Roswell 51. This one is a Lovecraftian themed one. It takes place 5 years after the initial release of the original story, A Shadows over Innsmouth. In each of the shuffling horror games, you play as if you are in a movie. One player will play the director, while up to 12 other players will play as actors in the movie. The background to this movie is that there are a bunch of gangsters that are on the lam, and they have hijacked a bus full of students from Miskatonic University and have made a wrong turn late at night. And now they have to deal with the horrors that come up in Innsmouth as they come down the road. Now, this setup we have here is using the board from the Roswell 51 board game. You do not need this board in order to play Innsmouth 32, and there will be a smaller board that will be available during the Kickstarter. But I'm using the the Roswell 51 board because it's bigger and everything's set out and it looks nicer. The game is played over 4 reels, which are kept track on top by these little the reel cans here. And at the end of each reel, you will award the horror star to one of the players. And then whenever they are able to redeem it for different things, they'll pass it back to you. But it's played over 4 reels, kept track of by the director on top. Now, each one of the sets adds a new mechanic to the game, and Innsmouth 32 is no different. This set is going to add the Insanity rules and the Mythos rules. And we'll go ahead and take a look at those new cards in a minute after we've gone over a little bit of the gameplay for this game. At the beginning of the game, each player will start off with a number of spoints. These are survivor points, depending on the amount of players in the game. And these spoints will be used to either increase your stat score, increase your damage, or to negate damage dealt to you by the director's monsters that come into play. The game comes with a multitude of rule cards that you can check that have all the main rules on the game, going from setup all the way to endgame and what different points on the board mean. At the beginning of each reel, the director will deal out a number of cards from the main deck here into his reel spot here, and also 3 for the opening movie scene. These cards include different things like the monsters that the director will be able to take and place into one of his 6 throngs here at the top, and the survivors will have to try to defeat by dealing damage equal to the number in the bottom corner to that monster during their turn. It also includes item cards like this, which will help them deal extra damage when making attacks. Shuffling horror cards, which are resolved right away whenever they come out in the different spots in order from 1, 2, and 3. Like this one, Shoggoth here, it causes a survivor, the survivor who causes this card to appear immediately has to test their guts, because you have 4 different stats on your survivor cards. And failure yields real number of insanity tokens that are gained. Success yields just 1, and we'll go over the insanity rules in a little bit. They also have power play cards, like the Necronomicon here, and the Hip Flask, that the survivors can choose to take and put on their survivor cards, and that give them a little extra abilities to do. Like you see here, the Hip Flask right here says this flask contains the real number of swigs. Each swig removes 1 insanity point. The flask can be taken and used by other survivors via a take action on their turn. And the Necronomicon, which does a little bit of Mythos tokens, which are used for special attacks. The survivors in a stack are over onto the side, and players can choose to draw one of them on their turn, like so. Certain survivors will start with a certain number of Mythos tokens on them, and we'll get to those in a minute, the rules for those. And we'll also have 4 stat scores on the bottom: muscle, speed, brains, and guts. The new insanity rules that we're talking about are right here on a nifty card, and on the other side is the player's turn about what a player can do during their turn. But concerning the new rules, insanity rules, if you get an insanity token, you have to roll one six-sided dice to determine which stat that token is put on. On a 5, it's a player's choice. On a 6, it's a director's choice. And it makes that stat a 4. So your stat beforehand could have been a 7, but now if you're insanity, let's say you rolled brains, it will be a 4. So any checks that you need to make have to be 4 and under, because this game goes off a roll high and die system. You want your rolls on either a 2d6 or a 1d6, depending on what it is. You want them to be low. Now, because this is a prototype, we don't have the actual tokens for the game, but we are told by the rulebook that I have here that there will be 16 insanity tokens. We have them represented by green beads. That's what we've been using while we've been playing. So go ahead and put the insanity rules back here. Next, we're going to be covering the Mythos rules. Certain survivors actually come into play with Mythos points, as well as items from the real deck. They will come in with them. And what you can do with them is that you can use those Mythos points to banish monsters that are in the throng or that are on the movie screen. Now, the monster being targeted by a Mythos attack does get a 2d6 saving throw roll, where they either have to meet the number or get lower, and then it will actually save. But if it rolls higher than the number, the monster will get discarded. And you can manipulate the monster's base value by using Mythos items. The game ends whenever the players reach the end of the 4th reel, and that stack will have, I think it's 10 cards if I remember correctly. If they get through all 10 cards in the reel pile, and all the ones are cleared from the screen, and there are still survivors left in play with players, the players then win Innsmouth 32. We've had a lot of fun here at Logan Chops Reviews playing Pittsburgh 68, Roswell 51, and Innsmouth 32, and I can't wait for you guys to see it on Kickstarter. It is going to be awesome. It's going to blow you away, and you are going to love it. I can't wait for you guys to see some of the stretch goals and the artwork they have for the game. So make sure you check it out on Kickstarter, July 16th. I'm Logan for Logan Chops Reviews Previews. We hope you enjoyed this preview of Innsmouth 32 by GameWick Games, and make sure to check it out on Kickstarter. We'll see you next time. Happy gaming.